there, I'm Joe Branton and I'm here today for GAK with the all-new Boss bass compressor, the BC-1X, Boss's new release for NAMM 2016. And this is great. It's a really exciting little unit. The first time Boss have done a bass-specific compressor. We've had the limiter enhancer for a little while, and of course a lot of bass players use the CS3, Boss's standard ordinary analog compressor. But this is something very different. I guess over the last few years, bass compression has moved more towards multi-band style compression. We had the MXR bass compressor released a couple of years ago. TC Electronics have just brought out their own multi-band bass specific compressor. It's all the rage at the moment, and the reason that multi-band compression has become so important is because bass players are sort of cursed with having a low note like that and a high note like that. So we've got a really broad range of notes that we need to compress. And the problem with using something like a CS3, which I use and have used up until now, is that if you want the right amount of compression on your low note, that means you're gonna not have enough up here, and that's gonna, it's gonna ring through way too much, and it's gonna sort of pop out of the mix a little bit when you're playing alongside guitars and drums and keyboards and things. And of course you have the reverse problem as well. If you get all your high end sitting right in the mix, you get a really squashy, over compressed low end, which can be a bit of a nightmare. Hence why multi-band compression has become so important. Now, what Boss have done to make their multi-band bass compressor so unique and kind of so intuitive for bass players is they've introduced their MDP technology, which of course is included in all the X series pedals. They're using the multi-band style compression, which means you've got the right compression. You can get the right compression on your low notes and your high notes, so everything sits evenly. It's using different levels of compression depending on the notes you are playing. But what the MDP technology allows is that these controls are intelligent as well. So as I'm messing around with the level, the release, the ratio and threshold, the four controls on this pedal, the pedal itself is adapting other parameters whilst I'm turning just the one knob to make sure that everything's usable. I mean, I was really surprised when I first plugged this in and turned it on. I think I had everything at 12 o'clock and the pedal sounded great. And I was like, well, that's unusual, definitely on bass. Like try taking an analog compressor, try taking a CS3 or an MXR Dynacomp or something like that, putting everything at 12 o'clock and turning it on. You'll be really over squashed, or it will be way too quiet or way too loud. It's all about sort of fiddling around with a compressor for a bass and trying to find what's right for you. Because essentially what we've got here is a studio compressor in a little stomp box. I'll stop talking and let's have a listen. I'll show you a little bit about what this pedal can do, and we'll take it from there. I'm using a, sadly, pending discontinuation Fender P-Bass Deluxe, an American Deluxe, and I'm going into one of these Ashdown Retro Glide, a million band EQ heads into one of their 410s. I've left everything on the head completely flat. I am playing on the active mode on the bass, but I've left everything at 12 o'clock. So let's have a listen to the sound. Okay, so now let's listen to that with the effect on. The BC-1X is actually so versatile that whilst it works really well on just my standard sort of bass playing, it actually sounds great on chords as well without me changing around too many parameters. So let's have a listen to that. Here are some chords without any compression on them at all. It's almost like someone's turned on your tone control. And that's what's great about multiband compression, is it really brings out all the harmonics and all those subtle nuances in your playing, which can just make your bass sound livelier than you realized it could without over squashing your low end. So a really great pedal. I'm going to turn the ratio, which is the overall compression of the pedal, I'm going to turn that up quite a bit. I'm going to turn down the threshold, so it's going to let less of my note through before it starts compressing it, and we'll have to turn up the level a bit to sort of level out the volume of that. So what we're going to be hearing now is less of my true signal and more of the overall compressed sound. Now, this sort of thing would normally be unusable, and when I think about multi-band compression generally, but especially with the Boss BC-1X with the MDP technology, is it manages to make this sort of over-compressed squashy sound really usable. Let's give it a listen. Okay, so let me take you through the controls of the bass compressor. First of all, here we've got the level. Now the level controls the overall output volume of the compressor itself, so what it puts out, what it does to your overall signal. Then we've got the release. Now the release is quite interesting. That kind of works a bit like a noise gate. The release can either really make your notes cut off when you finish playing, if you really dime it, or if you put it back a bit, it allows the notes to kind of flow into each other a little bit more. Then we've got the ratio. Ratio is the overall compression of the pedal. So if we were to whack that right the way up, we're going to get a really like Billy Sheehan style over squash sound. And then lastly, we've got threshold. Now threshold deals with where in the note the compression kicks in. So if you have that down low, it's going to let through more of the volume of the note before it starts compressing it, you know, or less of it if you were to turn it up a bit more. Another feature that I think makes the Boss bass compressor stand apart from the other multi-band competition is that they've included a power enhancer that takes your 9-volt input and it boosts it up to 18 volts. And of course, what does that do? It gives you loads of headroom. And you know, what's the one thing that we want from having bass compression? It's that extra headroom. It's so that our low end doesn't get too muddy when we're, you know, compressing our high end. So having that just it makes everything sound like you're going through 1,000 watts. So there we have it, the Boss BC-1X bass compressor, first of its kind, Boss's first multi-band bass compressor, the MDP technology there, just making this pedal sound brilliant. It will make your playing so much more lively. I thoroughly recommend it to any bass players. check one out as soon as you can.